Hi everyone, tonight we're waking up. I know that sounds like an odd way to begin an evening story. But picture this with me, the early morning light sneaking in through the curtains. Birds doing their best impression of an orchestra outside. And you're slowly opening your eyes, but your back has already made it very clear who's in charge. That ache, the one that always greets you before your feet even touch the floor, is already there. It's dull and familiar. Like an old classmate you never really liked but keep bumping into at the grocery store. So before you get too cozy, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you really enjoy what I'm doing here. I'd love to know where you're watching from and what time it is. There, drop it in the comments below. Now, turn off the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for a bit of soft noise. And let's step into today's story together. You wake up with that familiar ache again. Lower back, mostly. Sometimes it travels up toward your shoulder blades like it's sightseeing. Some mornings, it's just stiff. Other days, it feels like your spine is throwing a tantrum. You used to roll out of bed like a catwell, a 45-year-old cat. Now you feel more like a turtle flipped on its shell. Squirming to get upright without tweaking something. At first, you tell yourself it's nothing, just aging. Part of the package deal. You mutter things like, "Guess this is what 60 feels." Like as if that's an explanation, not a surrender. Eventually, like most of us do, you go to the doctor. Not your first choice, they'll probably tell you to lose weight, drink more water, and stay active. And sure enough, he does, with that same clinical smile you could draw in your sleep. But what he doesn't say is how. He doesn't sit you down and explain what to do when your back locks up while you're tying your shoes. He doesn't mention that staying active is hard when you're nervous about bending the wrong way. He hands you a pamphlet that looks like it was printed in 1992 and tells you to do gentle stretching. You nod, take the paper, and toss it onto the kitchen counter next to last week's grocery list. It's not until one particular morning, after a restless night and a rough attempt to pull on your socks, that you whisper to yourself, "Enough." That word feels heavier than usual. Not dramatic, just done. Done with grumbling. Done with waiting for the pain to leave on its own. So, in your oversized pajama shirt and that pair of slippers with the lopsided heels, you sit down on the edge of your bed and decide, "I'm going to stretch something, anything." And that's where the mailman comes in. His name is Ronnie. He's been delivering your mail for years. And somehow he always ends up talking too long about things like tomato plants and leg cramps. But last week, he mentioned how he stretches every morning before his route to avoid postal spine, which sounds made up but believable. You laughed, asked what he does, and he showed you a simple move right there on your front porch arms, reaching toward the sky. Deep breath in, then slowly bending at the waist like you're about to bow at a piano recital. You try it the next morning, and it is hilarious. Your arms feel like spaghetti. Your back complains before you're even halfway down. And you lose your balance a bit, catching yourself on the dresser. Not graceful, not magical, but interesting. The next day, you try again, slower this time. You reach up, Breathe in through your nose like they say in yoga class, the one you took once in 2004. And fold forward until you feel that sweet stretch along your lower spine. It doesn't hurt, it doesn't feel good either, but it moves. And somehow, that feels like a win. You keep doing it. Every morning, before coffee. You even give it a name, the postal bow. It becomes your quiet rebellion against stiffness, against waiting for permission to feel better. Now, you're not a pro. On day 5, you twist too quickly and spend the afternoon with a heating pad. But day 6, you come back. You reach a little higher, bend a little smoother. You find that if you bend your knees just a bit and let your arms dangle like wet noodles, the stretch deepens without snapping you in half. Something begins to shift, not just in your back, but in your mood. You feel like you're taking part in your own well-being, even if it's only for 60 seconds in the morning. It's not glamorous. There's no mat, no candles, no background music. Just your breath, the creak of your floorboards, and a single stretch you stole from your mailman. And in that moment, with your fingertips grazing your knees, you realize, maybe this is what taking care of yourself looks like now. Not a miracle, not a full cure, but a start. You keep at it. Day after day. Some mornings are better than others. Sometimes your dog thinks it's a game and runs under you. Sometimes you fart a little. You're alone, it's fine, but you start to look forward to it. That's the strangest part. It becomes part of the rhythm of your morning rite between opening the blinds and debating oatmeal versus toast. And that's when it begins to click. Not chasing some pain-free fantasy. You're just honoring the body you live in, moving it gently, thanking it for carrying you through so many decades. Even if it creaks, even if it protests, even if it groans louder than you do. The second stretch wasn't something you read about or saw in a video. It happened by accident, as most good things in life do. You were standing in the bedroom, balancing on one foot to put on your socks, something you do every morning, even though your balance is about as steady as a shopping cart with a wobbly wheel. You lost your footing, reached out to steady yourself on the nightstand, and in the awkward shuffle, twisted your body in a way that gave you a surprisingly pleasant tug down your side. You stood there for a moment, foot half in a sock, thinking, wait a second, what was that? So you did it again, this time on purpose. You planted your feet shoulder-width apart, raised one arm over your head like you were reaching for a cookie jar on the top shelf, and leaned to the side slowly. There it was again, that tug, that stretch that ran from your hip all the way to your ribs. It didn't hurt. It felt cleansing. You add it to the routine. It doesn't get a fancy name like the first one. You just call it that side thing. But that side thing becomes a favorite. It wakes you up. It makes your waist feel loose, like someone untied a knot you didn't know was there. And then one morning, as you're easing into it, your cat jumps onto the windowsill and does what cats do on elegant, back-arching, paws-stretching pose. That would make a yoga teacher weep with joy. You watch him. He stretches like it's instinct, like his body just wants to feel good. And you wonder, when did that instinct leave you? You drop to the floor slowly, mind you, because getting Back up is no small feat. Try your best to copy him. Hands forward, but in the air, head down. It's not graceful. You feel silly. But your back lengthens in a way you haven't felt in years. You laugh. Your cat gives you a judgmental look. You don't care. The third stretch is born. You call it the cat thing. It's a low, grounded move, part child's pose, part beginner yoga, part please don't let the neighbors see me through the window, but it works. It unlocks the muscles that feel like they've been sitting in a traffic jam for a decade. You hold it for a few seconds, then a few more. You start to feel things realign, and then something strange happens. You notice progress, but not in grand, dramatic ways. You're not leaping out of bed or running marathons. You notice it in the small, quiet victories. Like how you can now reach the spoon in the back of the silverware drawer without making a sound that scares the dog. Or how you don't grunt quite so loudly when you stand up from the couch. Or how you're no longer terrified of sneezing while standing. You're not tracking your stretches in a fancy app. You're not journaling your journey, but you are noticing. And that noticing feels powerful. It's like your body is whispering back, thanks. 2 weeks in, you catch yourself standing in the kitchen, waiting for the kettle to boil, and you realize you're standing straight, not leaning on the counter, not shifting side to side like someone trying to fake confidence in high heels. Just standing, tall, comfortable. You don't say anything out loud, but inside you feel it. Something has shifted. Not just in your back, but in your sense of ownership. You're not at war with your body anymore. You're collaborating, of course. You're still 60-something. You're not expecting to feel like you're 25 again. But one morning during your cat thing stretch, you feel something even. Better than young, you feel capable. And then comes the morning when it all clicks. It's chilly, the sun's barely up, and you're standing at the window, arms overhead in your first stretch. You flow into that side thing and finish. With the cat thing on the rug, your knees pop. A cat supervises. And when you stand up, you feel incredible. Not perfect, not invincible, but steady, upright, present. You whisper to yourself, I feel 42. Not because 42 was perfect, but because back then, mornings weren't such a negotiation. It's a strange kind of joy. Not the wild, laugh until you cry kind, more like a peaceful pride. Like looking at a freshly made bed or remembering you drank enough water today. Quiet joy, and you realize something else. You didn't just create a stretching routine. You created a ritual. A morning ritual that doesn't require equipment, doesn't cost a dime, and doesn't demand perfection. Just 3 stretches, 3 minutes, 3 little acts of kindness for your spine. You haven't told anyone yet. It's been your private moment. It's your way of reclaiming a part of your life that used to feel like it was slipping out of your hands. But as your body starts to respond, so does your spirit. You walk a little farther on your daily stroll. You don't avoid the low shelves at the grocery store. You stop looking for the nearest chair at social events. You start trusting your body again. And that, more than anything, feels like the real victory. You've come a long way with your 3 stretches. And by now, it's not about fixing everything. It's about feeling just a little better each day. But of course, not everything you tried was a winner. You remember those trending spinal flossing exercises someone shared in a Facebook group. The name alone made you suspicious. Anything with flossing that isn't about teeth deserves a raised eyebrow. But you gave it a go. And after one clumsy attempt to shimmy your lower spine like you were dancing in slow motion, your back reminded you, we don't do that here. That night, you lay on the couch with a heating pad and a bowl of regret. But oddly enough, you don't feel like a failure. In fact, trying something that didn't work helped you define your limits. And in this season of life, that's not defeat, that's wisdom. You used to think getting older meant constantly adjusting to a shrinking life. Now, you see it's about refining it, cutting away what doesn't serve you, keeping what does. One Sunday morning, you find yourself telling your daughter about the stretches over coffee. She's fiddling with her phone, nodding absently until you mention the cat thing. She raises an eyebrow and says, "Wait, are you doing yoga now?" You laugh. You assure her no incense is involved, no classes, no downward dog on Instagram. Just you, a rug, and your cat, who frankly does better poses. But then her face softens. "That's kind of amazing, Mom." And she means it. She asks you to show her one. So there you are, in the middle of your kitchen, half-socked, and holding on to the counter, demonstrating that side thing while your daughter watches with amusement and just a little admiration. It's a strange reversal, isn't it? You're used to being the one who watched her learn how to move her first steps, her first wobbly bike ride. Now she's watching you move again, at 60-something, reclaiming something small and sacred. She smiles and says, "Maybe I'll try that." You grin. Just don't steal the name. A few days later, your friend Marlene, bless her, the human firecracker, pulls you aside during your book clubs break. "Okay," she says, "what's your secret?" You're moving like someone swapped your joints out for new ones. You blink, and then you laugh, because it's working. Their people are noticing. The little daily ritual you started quietly, just for yourself, has begun to ripple outward. You tell her about the stretches. She wrinkles her nose. "I hate stretching." "Me too," you say. "Until I didn't." And that's the thing. You never loved it. You just needed it. And now you kind of crave it. Like the second sip of coffee, or the moment you sink into warm sheets at night. It's become your body's way of saying, "Let's start over." Of course, there are still bad mornings. Some days the stretch feels more like a chore than a gift. Some days your back talks louder than usual. But you don't quit anymore. You don't give up at the first sign of stiffness. You show up anyway. Because you've made peace with good enough. You're not chasing perfect posture. You're not entering a flexibility contest. You just want to get out of bed without holding your breath. And most days, you do. And isn't that something? There's a grace that comes with letting go of expectations. You stop measuring your body against its younger self. You stop punishing it for needing more care. Instead, you tend to it like an old house with creaky floorboards that still holds warmth and history and charm. You learn to love what remains, and you begin to feel proud, not just of what you can do, but of what you keep doing. Eventually, you realize there's one stretch you'll never stop doing. It's not the fanciest, not the deepest, but it's the one that meets you every morning with honesty and ease. The postal bow, the first, the beginning of it all. You still raise your arms, still take that deep breath in, still fold forward slowly, like you're bowing to the day ahead. And maybe you are. You do it not just for your spine, but for your spirit, because in that moment, arms overhead, breath steady, you're not just stretching, you're claiming space. Space for yourself, space for your healing, space for the quiet joy of choosing to begin again. So tomorrow morning, you'll do it again, and the next morning, and the one after that, because this stretch, this small act of resistance against pain, against stillness, against resignation, is yours. It belongs to you now. And no matter how many more years you get on this earth, you'll keep bending, keep reaching. Keep honoring the life still inside this beautiful, stubborn, aging body of yours until the very last stretch.